Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. And for those of you who are here for the first time, my show is all about celebrating artists and their body of worth. What makes a great artist? How do they get from point A to point B and beyond? But before we bring on our guest today, by the way, we have a birthday boy in the house, Vincent James, and his lovely wife, Joann Pierdomenico. I am so thrilled that they are here because they have devoted their lives to making sure that music remains in our education. I remember when I was a kid, and one music teacher that stands out above all others in Conway, South Carolina, was Miss Bellamy. She came in with all the latest songs, and we would sing all the pop tunes. This was in the 60s and 70s, and it was always a thrill when our music teachers came to our classes. Years later, I was lucky enough to be on the board of the Carol Channing and Harry Collegian Foundation for the Arts. And Harry Collegian always used to say, if children are not exposed to music, they will not know the difference between a xylophone and a microphone. And thank God we have these two people that are joining us today, Vincent and Joann. I am so thrilled that you're here. I have loved your book. I love the work that you're doing. And before we delve into that, I want everyone to take a moment just to pause. I think of this time that we're going through as a pause. And it's a time for us to think about what we have, what we had, and what we desire in our lives. And as you take that pause, I want you to imagine a world without music.
No.
I am with you. Music defines my life. I have music playing from the moment that I get up in the morning. I fall asleep listening to music at night. It's so important. It's so important to me. But I want to ask both of you before we delve into the work that you do. How are you both doing, really, in the midst of this crazy time? And once again, Vincent, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard.
Birthday boy.
Appreciate it.
I just a few weeks ago, I had my first pandemic birthday, and it is odd to say the least.
Yes. Celebrating isolated is definitely a different experience. And this whole year, the last 12 months, I know for us, I think it was, we actually, our granddaughters celebrated her first birthday.
Granddaughters?
6, yes.
I don't believe you.
And last year on Sunday, March 5th or March 6th, we got together with her and family. And then
for her first birthday. Her very first birthday.
And then by the end of that week, it was all gone. Everything was shut down, and it's like
we didn't even know what hit us.
The work I do during the day, we were all sent home. Kids home from college. It's a whole different experience. And for what we do, we were actually getting ready to go into Teach Music Week, which is part of our nonprofit that we do in March, third week in March. Well, everything was just like. All the music schools were pivoting, on a dime, trying to get all their existing students, working with the virtual lesson programs. So they weren't really able to, jump in for offering lessons to new students at that time. So it was a kind of a crazy time when we were juggling around. And of course, like everyone else, what do we do? Groceries, deliveries, all these normal things that you have to do. How are we going to handle this? And how long is this going to last? Right? We all thought maybe a couple months. People that were smarter than us, more science-based, I think they knew this was going to be a long haul for all of us, Richard.
And something, the whole thing that Vincent talked about too, about going to the grocery store and things like that. I did not go into a grocery store since last March until about 4 weeks ago. 4 weeks ago, I would order my groceries online. I'd go to the grocery store, pop my trunk, and they would put the groceries in the car for me. And then I come home and I have all my Lysol wipes and I'm wiping everything down or I'm washing everything down. And I'll tell you, it's amazing what you find on those wipes.
Is it just the two of you at home?
No, actually, our two daughters are at home. One's in college, but she's at home and she's actually getting ready to go back. Mm-hmm. And then our other one, our older daughter, who is turning 25 this year, she was kind of making plans on getting her own place. But, well, you know, COVID happened. So it was better for her to stay home and just keep saving her money because, you know, money's needed and a lot of people weren't working. And so we have the two daughters at home. The two boys are all grown up. They're on their own. They're, you know, married, having babies.
That's great. And where is home for both of you?
Philadelphia area.
And you both are very much still involved in the educational system. So how has that affected the work that you both are doing?
So we don't work directly in the school system. I used to. Mm-hmm. But basically the work that we do supports music schools, music stores, and public schools, because we are trying very hard to, you know, really get people to understand the power of music and how important it is for children to have music in schools, because it has been removed from so many places.
Absolutely.
Especially, you know, with in just the last couple of years with the arts being removed, because they're focusing so much on the core curriculum. But a lot of them don't realize that having a music education actually supports them with their core curriculum. And there are many schools that want to have it, but they can't afford it. They don't have the budget for it.
Well, I'll tell you something very interesting. A few years ago, I came in to mentor some kids. They were doing a production of Hello Dolly. And those who know me know that I even have a website devoted to all the women who have played Dolly. And so I came in to speak with the kids. And one thing that I learned about these kids, when they wanted to put new seats in the auditorium, they had to do bake sales and magazine sales and anything they could do, fundraisers, auctions, anything they could do to raise money. Right. When they wanted to get stadium seating for the football field, the money was thrown at them. They didn't have to work as hard for that. And I don't understand, and I'd love for your opinion on this. I know a lot of the reasons why, but getting to the core of it, why do you think that when budget cuts begin to happen, that the first thing to go is funding for the arts?
I think the sports versus the arts thing is a hard comparison. Mm-hmm. But in general, I think music and arts suffer because it's not something that's so easily quantitatively measured. You know, you have your math, your science, you know, your English, you know, you take quantitative tests, you know, scoring, where you can, you know, with educational edicts coming down from the national and then down from the states, where you have to have these levels and they have scores and all this, and you're getting rated against all the other schools, and that can affect your funding. But until they have music and arts, you know, up there in a quantitative way and getting measured as important as these other areas, I think that's why it's so much easier for them to push, you know, well, we have to get rid of something. This isn't getting measured as much, you know, what doesn't get measured doesn't change.
Right. That's right.
I want to go back with both of you, and I'll start with you, Joann. What are your earliest memories as a child in school and your exposure to music? And before we get there, did you grow up in a household where music was the norm rather than the exception?
No, it wasn't. So to make a long story short, my mother came to this country with it's not an American education, we'll say that. Mm-hmm. And she could barely, you know, read, speak, or write the language. Mm-hmm. We had a very poor household. We were at the poverty level, so we could not afford to have anything musical in the home. The only thing we really had were like the clock radio and the transistor radio, mm-hmm. but which was great because that's what I listened to, and that's what was so important in my life. But I was exposed in elementary school to music classes. Once we got into 3rd or 4th grade, we started having music classes, and I had the opportunity to play violin. And so I came home one day without my mom knowing, and I brought home this violin case, which was about almost as tall as me, because I was always very tiny. I was always the smallest one in the class. And I brought this home, and I asked my mom, I said, please, 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 can I play? I really want to learn to play. And so she said, okay, okay. And I was so happy. Well, within a couple of weeks, my mom says, I'm sorry, honey, you got to take that back because you're disturbing the neighbors. You know, violin.
Beginner violin students are quite the challenge to listen to.
Yes.
No. Well, that's true of a lot of, whether you're singing or whether you're playing an instrument. When you're a kid, unless you're some amazing child prodigy, that is the experience for most parents and neighbors.
Yeah. And, you know, we lived in a very small apartment building, and my mom, you know, just felt like it wasn't fair to them.
Well, let me ask you this. Were the neighbors complaining about it?
No, my knowledge, my neighbors, we actually had really good neighbors, and they rarely complained about anything. But my mom was always very, you know, considerate. Mm-hmm. She was always concerned about, you know, other people. So, well, that kind of like ripped out the whole music education thing for me until middle school. And then I joined the choir. And then I actually had to leave that after the first year because they didn't have, you know, uniforms. Mm-hmm. It was your own clothing, and we didn't have money for nice clothing. So I had to leave that. But really, I know the benefits of music education. I know what it does for kids, and that's why I advocate for it. You know,
did you go back to the violin later on?
I didn't, but I'll tell you something. Our youngest daughter, when she was in high school, in the middle of high school, decided she wanted to learn to play. And I couldn't believe it because, you know, she didn't really care to play an instrument. Mm-hmm. And so we ordered one. It came in the mail, and I was like, tears. I was just like, it brought back a lot of memories. Mm-hmm. And I was so excited for my daughter. She wanted to self-teach herself. You know, she didn't want to have a teacher. Mm. So, but she was learning through YouTube and some other things. And then we took her to go see a gal that we know play, and she's like magnificent. You know, she's played around the world. And I told her, I said, this lady here can teach you how to play the violin properly. Well, all she had to do was see her play once, and she was like, yes, I'll take that class. I'll take that lesson. So music is, you know, and then our other daughter, she never wanted to learn to play the piano. Vincent tried to teach her.
It's a funny story, Richard. Is 4 children. None of them really gravitated towards playing a musical instrument. Our 2 sons are interested in, you know, they do writing, they do film work, and now online video stuff. Our oldest daughter, as Joann was starting to say, for years I tried to get her to sit on the piano bench long enough to teach her, and she was just not interested. It wasn't
having it.
Not until she was in high school, and she realized she could put her iPhone up on the piano, bring up the chords to her favorite songs, and sing and play along, that she got hooked. She's like, Daddy, what's this chord? Daddy, what's that chord?
Yeah.
And then she was off. I mean, she was always into music, singing. She was in choir and shows, musical shows.
Ever since
theater.
3rd grade. But she was in marching band, you know, through high school and college. And, you know, so she was definitely, you know, bit by the music bug for sure. But, you know, having a formal music education, neither one of them wanted anything to do with that. They just really wanted to learn at their own pace.
Well, I want to ask you, right after high school, or what was the career path that you chose, and how did music continue to impact your life as you moved forward?
So career-wise, I ended up just going right to work after high school. I had planned to go back to school, but I felt I was one of those kids that needed a break. Mm-hmm. I wasn't like a huge fan of school.
Right.
You know, I needed a break. So I worked for a couple of years, and then I ended up going to business school because I felt like I didn't have musical talent. So what was I going to do? Well, I might as well be, you know, an administrative assistant, an executive assistant. So I went to business school for almost 2 years, graduated that, and then just, you know, worked, you know, with different companies throughout the years. And then, but
she basically got drugged back into music 30 years ago when she met me.
Well, yes, we actually met.
Okay, I want to stop because I'm going to get there eventually. I'm going to go back to you, Vincent, and I'm going to start. I want your story as well, the household that you grew up in, just as I asked Joann. Did you grow up in a musical household?
So in the very beginning, my mom sang in church choir.
Okay.
I sang in church choir until, I don't know, I was maybe 10 or so. And one Sunday I went, boom, I fainted. You know, the heat, the outfit, you know,
the gowns that they
the gowns
wear.
was like, all right, you're done. But the story continued with my mom always wanted to learn to play the piano. And she talked my dad when my mom was in her 40s to bring a piano into the house. And I was like a bee to honey. I saw that. I'm like, when can I start? And that was kind of when I really got started on it. And I took classical lessons for a few years. And also in elementary school, like Joann, in 4th grade, we were allowed to start taking an instrument. I first came home that first day and I asked my parents, I want to learn how to play guitar. I don't even think guitar was on the list of instruments that you could play, but that's what I said. And they said, no, go pick something else. I came home day 2. I said, I want to learn how to play drums. And they said, no, even louder. They're like, no way do we want to hear drums. So I started on the trombone in 4th grade and played that all the way through senior year in high school, marching band, concert band, stage band, and continued playing piano, eventually guitar, writing songs. I wanted to go to college for music eventually. And, you know, I was swayed by the more practical folks in the family. Said, you know, you should do something more technical. I mean, yeah, I was good at math, but that wasn't what I, you know, was in my heart. Mm-hmm. So I ended up on a technical career path for engineering. And I ended up doing that for literally 30 plus years while doing all different various music activities over the years, everything from being a songwriter, having songs, you know, recorded by other people, managing bands,
part owner of a recording studio,
you know, running a recording studio, part owner, writing custom love songs for people all around the world, wow. And releasing songs as an artist. And I put out several CDs and promoted to radio and got radio airplay. I almost did everything but theater.
And then the talent shows that I ran at the elementary school that our daughters went to. I was either helping to run it or I was running it when the person originally running left.
So 30 years ago you met. Was it 30 years ago the two of you met?
1990.
31.
Yeah, my husband and I met as well, so I know.
Beautiful.
Yes, love was in the air that year, I guess.
Yes, it was.
So what was, I mean, was it the music that brought you two together, or yes. It was?
It's a very interesting story.
So we were both at an event for different reasons. It was a radio station, a pop radio station that had an anniversary event at a hotel, big ballroom, and they have various major label artists come in to perform.
And it was a benefit for a local food bank.
Yes. And Joann was there.
So I went because a friend of mine who was actually a pen pal of mine throughout high school was going to perform there. He actually had done really well with his music career. He always used to send me tickets to come see him in New York, even though I was in New Jersey. I was in the southern part of New Jersey, but I never got to go and see him perform. So then I found out that he was performing at this benefit. So I called the radio station. I said, oh, here's my story. We're pen pals. We never met. He's performing. I want to come see him. Can you introduce us? And she was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I love that story. Yes, we will absolutely make sure you guys meet. So I was there for that.
You may even know the name, Tommy Page.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so in high school, she was pen pals with Tommy Page before he became famous.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, so you really were a part of the trajectory of his success.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yep. I used to help promote his records.
That's amazing. That's great. So, Tommy, if you're watching, you know, thank you for all that you've done. So, again, you both met at this event.
Yep.
And how did the relationship begin for you two?
Well, it started with me walking up to him saying, do I know you? Because he actually looked very familiar to me. Like I honestly, but I know it sounds like a line, but honestly, it was not a line.
You and I know better.
I really felt like I knew him.
The story gets better because Richard, the introvert that I am, and was even more so back then, I was like very like closed up, like, you know,
he was very shy.
Very shy. People would take it as I was being rude. So she, you know, after a moment, she walked away, and I'm just standing there. And then what happens?
I come back and I said, "Are you sure I don't know you?" because you seem very familiar to me. I think he was a love in a past life, and he was going to be coming from my future. He was there. Yeah. So, and he was actually there because he was writing for an entertainment newspaper, and he was there to do an article about the event. So, we became, he had his, back then, you know, he had a cassette of his music.
My cassette single.
And he showed it to me, and I said, yeah, I'll take it, and I'll listen to it on the way home, and I'll let you know what I think. And then, you know, we became friends. And then after a while, we fell in love.
That's wonderful. And as the relationship starts to unfold, you eventually get married, you have children. Was music always a part of your marriage?
Well, I would say it was up until we started having babies, because it really, the children really required so much of me. I mean, I was very supportive of Vincent, and I would do some administrative things on the side, but I was focused on raising the children. So it wasn't until our youngest one was in middle school and the next to youngest was in high school when we came up with an idea, which we will get into shortly, which actually helped us to grow closer musically and to build the organization and write the books.
Yeah. There was one little event that happened that kind of triggered what's happened these last 6-7 years. But Joann was extremely supportive. All those things that I mentioned that I did, I was putting out my own records, managing bands, being a songwriter. You know, I had a Y2K song, sang on the Jenny Jones show. What else? A bunch of other things.
He had a few novelty songs, and, you know, he's done a few albums all about love songs. So, yeah, and, you know, he's been busy. He would go out and perform a lot. And, you know, whenever I could, I would drag the kids. You know, as long as it was, you know, it was okay and there was no alcohol served, I would drag the kids out so they could see Daddy sing and perform.
Now, it's one thing to have a career in the music industry. It's a completely different ball of wax when you're going to devote your time and your energy into arts and education. How did that begin for both of you?
So it was about 7 years ago, Richard. I was listening. Heard about a teleseminar, you know, this is back before Zoom and video and all this. It was a teleseminar, and it was called How Everyone Has a Book Inside Them They Need to Write. And I'll be quite honest, I never in my life thought that I would write a book. You know, what was I going to write about? I didn't consider myself an expert on anything. I was an okay songwriter, you know, pretty good. I was a so-so engineer. I mean, I wasn't devoting my life to either one, so both suffered in a sense because I wasn't truly focused. But I'm like, you know what? Something's drawing me to listen to this. So, you know, I'm listening to the teleseminar that's on the phone, and I'm listening. And about halfway into the call, you know, where they're talking about different things, I had this idea. What about a book of inspirational stories of how music impacted people's lives? I could, you know, solicit stories from all around the world, put them together, edit them, and publish it, and help inspire other people to play music. And I have to tell you, Richard, I got so excited. You know, I ran up the stairs. Joann, I got this crazy idea. She's like,
he was chock full of crazy ideas.
She's like, oh, another one.
I was like, what is it now?
I'm like, no, really. No, really. And the funny thing is, about a month later, we were driving to an event where we were going to meeting with a coaching program that was going to help us put the first book together. Again, this is about 6 years ago. And I asked the question, how would you like to be my co-author on this book? After there's
a huge gap in there. You have to go back a little bit, Vincent. You came up with this idea. You run in, you tell her how excited you are. Joann, and be honest, did you share in that excitement at first?
Well, this is what I'll say. because I didn't think I was going to have any part in writing it. I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Go for it. And then it was a month later, I got reeled in.
And then you got real what? I'm sorry?
I got reeled in.
Okay. So what was the process? Let's start there. Because a lot of people may have ideas for a book. And obviously, this is your second book. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes. So what was the process in terms of getting this together? I know that you said that you were going out for inspirational stories. How did you find the people that were part of the first book? And I'm assuming that the first book was very similar to this one.
Yes.
So this
yes.
is a whole series. This is great.
We both had our, well, we split up duties.
So like many things I do when I don't know any better and I don't ask enough questions of how people should do something, I tend to do it by brute force. So we literally, over the period of 9 months, we emailed and contacted one way or another individually 6,000 musicians around the world, both regular folks and famous celebrities, asking them if they had a story they would like to contribute, explaining the concept behind the book, the title. At the time, we were donating 50% to nonprofits. Now we're donating 80% to music education nonprofits, and just hoping that enough of them would respond with a story that would touch us, that we would feel would be, good to put in the book.
So who was the first person that responded to you?
I wish I knew the exact answer to that, but I can tell you one of the first celebrities, the first celebrity that responded, and this is one that kind of made us know that we were on the right track. So Simon Kirk, who was the drummer for Bad Company and Free, he wrote to us. He responded, one of the few celebrities in the beginning.
Next day, he responded to me,
which is amazing. We're nobody. We had this.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
Well,
at the time, we felt like we were no one.
We don't have a track record. We haven't published a book before. Who are you people?
Who are you people?
So he submits the story, and Richard, the tears came. If it's okay, at some point, I'd love to share the story with you.
No, please do. I'd love to hear that, because that's where it all began for both of you.
He talks about how he was giving a clinic over in the UK, a drum clinic, percussion clinic. He's up on stage in this auditorium. All the house lights are down. The lights are on him. And so he can't really see out into the audience. And he's demonstrating different drums and different techniques. And he's starting to hear this clicking sound coming from somewhere. And, he's a little mildly annoyed. He's doing percussion after all. But he's, just puts it out of his mind and continues, pulls out a different drum, shows another symbol, different technique. And again, every time he's doing something, there's clicking coming from somewhere around him. And he's starting to actually get annoyed. I'm up here doing this demonstration that they've asked me to do, and who is making this infernal clicking sound? It's just driving me crazy. But he's a professional. He's not saying a word. He's just continuing on, smiling. And then at the very end, the house lights finally go on, and for the very first time, he can see all the way to the back of the auditorium. And there is a row of wheelchairs with children sitting in them, holding drumsticks. They've been playing with him the whole time. Children with muscular dystrophy playing with him.
And they can barely,
grip
hold
the
him.
Sticks.
Barely. Wow. You want to talk about someone who was changing?
That's an amazing story.
He jumped off the stage, ran to the back, and he knelt down to each one of them,
child.
held their hand and said, thank you so very much for playing with me today. I really appreciate it. And, when you got that story, I'm tearing. When I tell the story,
I have such goosebumps.
I tear up.
Well, I want to ask you, as you started reaching out to celebrities and people, all types of people that you reached out to, did you have a form letter that you sent to everybody? What specifically were you looking for in terms of the arc of your book? Or did you even know what that arc was going to be when you first started out?
Yeah, we did. And in the early days, it's evolved. We got smarter. But basically, what we were trying to put into words is, have you ever had an experience or witnessed something that involved music, that a touching moment, a touching experience that was an emotional experience, or something that made you laugh, or something that made you say, oh my goodness, I can't believe that happened. And so we tried to, it was a form letter, but it was personalized as much as we could for the people, as much as we knew about them, and tried to make you're trying to make a personal connection.
Right.
And with the celebrities, you're often writing to their manager, their agent, their publicist. And so, many of them, will, put up the stop sign and not even pass along. But some of them, did pass along, and we started getting some responses.
And for Simon, I just happened to find the correct information that was his personal email. I don't even remember how I came across that.
She's a Google expert here.
Yeah, I'm the queen of finding information on celebrities.
It's a lot of work. I'll tell you, it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, but it was so worth it, because we got so many wonderful pieces for the book. And, people not knowing who we were, they were taking a chance on us. taking a chance on this guy and this gal who were wanting to write this book and change the world with stories of how music has impacted people's lives. And then on top of that, donating money from the book to also, help children in music education.
Well, I mean, you've talked, you've given us some examples, but what is the biggest impact that music has made on your life, both individually and as a team?
Well, do you mean music in general or music education?
In general.
Okay. So my teenage years were really rough. I had a very difficult childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And it was music that I always turned to in my darkest of times and my happiest of times. There wasn't too many of those.
And what kind of music were you gravitating towards?
I'm sorry?
What kind of music were you gravitating towards?
Oh, so I liked pop music. I was all about, pop and rock. I was all about Duran Duran and Bon Jovi and everything in between. Madonna, you name it. From the 80s, I loved it.
And talk about your dancing career.
Oh, it's not really a career, but it was fun. So friends of mine and myself, we would go to under 21 dance clubs. And that was such a release for me, being able to go have a good time, not have any worries, just enjoy the music, enjoy the dance. And so what we did was sometimes we entered contests. There were dance contests. None of us were ever, trained in dance, but we just had a great time. And I think it showed. And so 4 different times we won tickets to go on Dancing on Air. Do you remember that show?
I don't remember that. I don't know that. I mean, was that a national show?
It was a national show, and it was for teens under 21, and it was played every week on. Oh, I wish I could remember the channels. It could have been 29 at the time for Philadelphia area.
It was filmed here in the Philadelphia area and it became nationally syndicated. And
so, we had the opportunity to be on national TV 4 different times. So, music really was instrumental, no pun intended. And I think keeping me from going down a really dark path. I had friends that drank and did drugs and things like that. But music was what made me happy. Music is what made me feel good. Music was my high.
Mm-hmm.
So that kept me, from
music thing. I mean, that's great. And I want to ask you, getting back to the book, you start to get responses. Did the responses, was it like a slow trickle when it started? Or was it like the floodgates just open and you're all of a sudden getting a response?
Yeah. So we started reaching out, I think in September.
June of 2014.
Oh yeah, it was June.
It was definitely,
and it was a few months before we ever got a reply from someone. And I'm thinking, number 1, are our emails going through? Number 2, do people not like the idea of this book? Number 3, what are we going to do if nobody responds? Because we were telling everybody we were writing this book.
So what kept you going?
Why?
Yeah. The why of being able to contribute funds for music education and really just being able to help promote the value of music.
And once you start to get those responses, how many different stories are included in the first book?
About 120 total. Yeah. All told.
Mm-hmm.
And did you self-publish? Did you have a publisher that you went through?
We self-published.
We self-published. Now they have the print-on-demand mechanisms that Amazon offers that allows us to, pretty easily, inexpensively self-publish without upfront costs, which has really been a boon to so many authors.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And
do you have full control.
Do you have an editor or do you do everything yourselves?
We do it ourselves. But I think for the 3rd book that we're working on, we're going to hire an editor.
Yes.
Because it is very time consuming.
Of course it is. I mean,
between the book and the nonprofit, the music nonprofit, we're so busy.
So when did you know, because this book can grow and grow and grow, and obviously you're going into a 3rd volume. When did you know that the first volume was ready to, for lack of a better term, give birth to?
Well, like most things I do, back when I used to do records, release records and CDs, the way I would plan a release is I would pick a date. All right, this is the date it's coming out. And then I would work backwards. Mm-hmm. This is when I have to have those songs finished written. This is when I have to be in the studio by. I have to finish recording by. I have to have time for the manufacturing, the pressing, send it out to radio, all that stuff, and prepare a release party locally, etc. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, that's how I'll do it with a book. We'll pick a date. So we literally picked a date initially that was exactly a year from when I came up with the idea. It was like May 1st, 2015 was going to be the published date.
And was there any significance to the date?
Absolutely none, other than, we were emotionally tied to it. But I will tell you, as we got into the beginning of that year and realized the editing and everything else going on, we weren't going to quite make that date without killing ourselves.
Yeah, we were getting really stressed.
I want to go there with both of you. I mean, obviously, it is a time-consuming. Was it 24/7 for the two of you? Were there days where you just completely took off? And did it bring you closer together? Or were there moments where you thought you were going to kill each other?
Look, you know what? If a couple can write a book together and survive it, their marriage is golden after that.
That's good.
There's lots of compromises along the way. Yeah. I like this story. You like this story. I think it should be edited this way, that way. The title should be this title.
Or the book cover should be this and not that.
The book, everything. It definitely, I think, brought us closer together in the end and helped us learn how to better work together.
Yeah.
Over these last 6 years of doing this in music education advocacy, which has been a boon for everything we've been building. But it was definitely, I'd say, near the end. The last week was. I don't know if it was 24/7, but it was very close.
We were burning the candle at both ends, the midnight oil.
Because it's the editing and then proofing and then the order of the stories and making sure everything's right. And then there's the formatting of the book. You're your own publisher, so you're formatting it. And then you upload it to Amazon and you're like, well, that's not how it's supposed to look.
That's not fitting correctly.
And then you realize what's going on and what they're doing to it, which is fine. They're doing the right thing, but you don't realize it when it's the first time you're going through that. So the line fields, new paragraphs, new pages, and then the fact that we have all these individual stories, and you don't want a story to start like in the middle of a page. Most time, you try to as many stories to start in the beginning of the page, but without making the book go 500 pages because you started every story at the beginning of a page. So you're trying to balance all that, and you're trying to meet a self-imposed deadline, which I really wouldn't recommend that to too many people.
Well, I was going to ask you, I mean, did you feel a lot of pressure on yourself because you set a goal? And looking back now, was that a realistic goal or was it unrealistic? Obviously, you achieved the goal, but the pressure that it put on you.
Well, there was a lot of pressure because we were telling everyone when we were publishing. Had we not told everyone when we were publishing, it would have been a little less stressful.
I'm going to say what Carol Channing once said to me. She said, don't tell anyone what you're doing. Surprise them when it's ready.
Cool.
Because the expectations on everybody is so very high. Now, this is our newlywed game moment. So, Vincent, if you want to close your ears, you can do so. But I want to ask you, Joann, what was the biggest thing that you learned or surprised about yourself that you learned over this time? And what was the biggest light bulb moment for you when it comes to Vincent?
So I think what I learned about myself was that back when I used to do record promotion for Vincent's records, when people told me no, they didn't want to play it, and some of them weren't very nice, it kind of, it was kind of like stabbing you in the chest, because I took it personally because I was directly involved in the project. And so for quite a while, for a couple albums, I think after that, I refused to promote the record because I was so personally invested. And that it was very painful when some of them would say things that I I didn't care for. But then what I learned throughout promoting the book and even just getting the stories for the book was that some people weren't responding. And what I learned is that no doesn't, or silence doesn't necessarily mean no. And when they do say no, I look at it as not right now. And through that,
my friend Wes Foley, who I'm going to acknowledge, he always says rejection is God's protection. and
Yeah.
try
Nice.
to embrace that, because I believe that solely. What was the biggest no that the two of you received, and what was the process like to get through that no?
I mean, there wasn't, for me, at least in my memory, there wasn't one particular no. It was a lot of no's.
It's the volume.
The volume of no's, and also the silence of like, wow, I guess they don't really like the concept of the book. And
so you're taking it all personally, obviously.
Yes. But I learned not to. That's like my big takeaway is I learned not to, take it personally, and that, everyone's doing their job. All the gatekeepers for the celebrities, they're doing their job.
Mm-hmm.
And, and if that means we're not passing this request on, then we're not passing it on. And that's okay. But guess what? Those no's, some of them ended up being yeses, because we were able to get some of them eventually to either provide a story or actually become a Kids Music Day ambassador for Keep Music Alive.
That's amazing. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. But once you had the book finished, did you send the book to all the people who said no?
No.
That would have been interesting.
That would have been interesting. But we actually sent a copy to everyone that had a piece in the book.
Yes.
Whether it was a quote or a story, every single person was mailed a complimentary copy.
Now, for both of you, is there a holy grail interview that you both would like to get, and why?
Ellen.
Well, I think for me, there's a lot of various shows we would like to be on, and it's honestly, I tell people it's not for us. It's like when we promote Kids Music Day, I don't care if you put me on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be on. Can we put some kids on and
Yes.
talk about Kids Music Day?
Yes.
Same thing with Teach Music Week, and same thing with the book. But one of my personal favorite interviewers and national TV platforms has to be Ellen. Obviously, she's just comes across as so personable, so down to earth, so truly caring. And I would love, I don't think I haven't tried. We're still casting the nets, this producer here, this producer there. What about this idea? What about that idea? Again, all with the aim of trying to raise the platform of why music education is so important.
And if I had the opportunity, I would want to be on Super Soul Sunday with Oprah.
And you should be. You should be.
Aw.
Have these books been sent to both of them?
Actually, yes. Oprah Winfrey, when the first book came out, it was sent to her because, she has a book club.
Yes.
Or she had a book club. And the first one was sent, but we never really followed up on that. And that's my bad.
You ask a very, very good question, Richard, in that a lot of times we're doing so many things and we're doing so much down at this level that sometimes we forget some of the important things that, I should have sent 10 books to 10 different Ellen producers. I mean, physical books to try to get it in their hands because you pick up the book and you hold it and you see it's got the music stuff on it and it catches some people's eyes and, they just might open it. And, I like to tell people with every email we send out and every book we send out, we're planting seeds.
Yes.
We don't know which of those seeds will grow, how long they'll take to grow. But if we don't plant any seeds, nothing's going to grow.
That's right.
And are you getting this book into libraries around the country?
Starting to, and it's a whole different system to get books into libraries.
There are from the first book, there's some in the libraries, and I know with the second book that just came out, there are a couple new ones that are taking the book in. So hopefully we'll be able to do the process that we need to do so that we can get it into more libraries.
The short story of what happened is we put out this book in 2015, and then Teach Music Week and Kids Music Day overtook our lives.
Yes.
Keep Music Alive and building the nonprofit. And our poor little book baby was ignored for too long. But as we've been able to build up the nonprofit, we now have a much stronger board of directors. We have a lot more volunteers. So our personal time is not needed as much to help keep it going and growing. So we decided that when we put out the second book, 88 More Ways, we are committed to putting much more time and effort and focus in and trying to make it the baby that it was really intended to be, to grow up to be the beautiful young adult.
It's like when you have children, you make so many mistakes with the first one and you try not to do them with the second one. You try to learn from the first one so that you can do better with the second child. There's a lot like
What's the biggest what's the biggest obstacle that the both of you have had to face in terms of getting your message out on a wider scale?
Prioritizing and time. You know, we have limited time. I am still working another full-time job during the day.
How do you find the time?
It's tough. It's tough
not easy. It's not easy. So given we have limited time, there's only two of us. It's determining, the obstacle is trying to be smart about determining what priorities we should put, what should we be asking, what questions we should be asking, which people, where we should be asking for help. And we're learning, you know, one of our mentors says, ask, ask, ask. You know, we need to become an askaholic. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid of the no's, because you just never know. And so we're getting better at it. You know, I'm slowly coming out of my introvert shell. You know, if you talked to me 5 years ago, it wouldn't be anything like this.
Oh, no. He was a whole lot more introverted back then.
Well, you know, as I said at the top of the show, I mean, today is 362 days since our theater shut down and cabaret rooms and everything. This is March's Cabaret Month. So I'm thrilled that you're doing this today. But beyond the obvious that we know about, what is the biggest impact that COVID and the past year has made on the two of you in terms of the work that you're doing, not only with the books, but with your arts and education outreach?
It's impacted us.
It's made us have to develop a lot more ideas for the music schools and stores that participate, and particularly last March and even in October for Kids Music Day, because so many of them are operating mostly all virtual. So how can we participate in this? How can we have an event? We had music schools that learned to do drive-in concerts, you know, where kids would be up on the stage, socially distanced with masks playing, and parents would drive into the lot.
Every other parking spot.
There'd be like a business next door that would let them use their lot, to have a bigger lot, and you have the drive-in concert by the kids. It's just learning to adapt. It hasn't really, it's certainly affected our fundraising. Absolutely. You know, fundraising over the last 12 months has definitely been hit by, like every other nonprofit out there, because of what's been going on, and we're not too worried about it, concerned about it, because when we were self-funded in the beginning, so we just lean a little bit more on that and just, you know, try to keep building it up, just keeping the positive attitude. And, you know, I mean, our hearts go out to all the people that do this full time for a living, the performers, the theater performers, the people behind the scenes, just everything they've had to go through these past 12 months. And I did see the Save Our Stages Act got passed recently, and hopefully that's going to help to some degree, but there's going to need to be more. And, you know, when I talk to people, you know, my optimism is once things start to open up, there's going to be an overwhelming demand of people wanting to get out and see live music and live arts. And I'm hoping that surge will build up to such a level and then be able to sustain. No, it's not going to sustain up here forever, but, you know, keep it going long enough, and so that, you know, we get at least back to where we were on a steady space, and then start building up again from there.
And one of the things I miss the most about our Keep Music Alive activities is the musical instrument petting zoos.
We can't do in person with the kids.
Yeah, like we've done them at some really great places like the Hedgerow Theater. We've done, you know, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We've done Legoland, and we bring a gazillion instruments in, and we set them up so that children, it's like a please touch museum, so children can come in and touch and play. Yeah, and it's my most favorite thing that we do with Keep Music Alive are the musical instrument petting zoos. And so, you know, my heart's a little sad because we haven't been able to do that, but you know, I'm hoping that maybe by the time Kids Music Day rolls around in October, we'll be able to do a few of them.
So we were doing them year round. We would go to schools, to libraries, anywhere that they would have us. We could bring in guitars, ukuleles, keyboards, dozens of different percussion instruments. We have teaching artists, volunteers come in to help the kids, you know, put the guitar in their hand, put the pick in their hand. What does this feel like? What does it sound like? And, you know, you can see from some of the pictures, like on our website, the excitement on these kids' faces when many of them are touching instrument for the very first time.
Oh my God. When you see a child smile because of a musical instrument, I just melt inside. I become like, you know, Jello. And, you know, and
I'm melting at the thought of it. That's amazing. Well, next week is a very big week in terms of the work that the two of you do. Can you talk a little bit about that, how that came about, and let everyone know about the work that you're doing in relation to what next week is all about?
Tell them how it started.
So shortly after, while we were still working on the first book and putting it together, I had this crazy idea. There should be a week every month, every month,
Not every month.
a week every year, that musicians everywhere in music schools should offer a free lesson to new students to try to whet their appetite. You know, so many people come up to me, I always wish I had learned to play the guitar, piano, whatever it is.
It's never too late.
Here's the one week where, you know, put it out there to them, you know, musicians. So that very first year, actually, we called it, believe it or not, just Teach Music America. You know, I was thinking very small-minded. And
I worked on him.
All I did was put out to the internet, you know, social posts, you know, hey, all my musician friends, you know, you should find somebody this week, a friend, family member, somebody that's always admired that you play this instrument. Try to get them started on playing it and see if you can continue. And then the next year, you know, we got a little bit bigger. We started actually contacting music schools and asking them if they would participate by offering at least one free lesson to new students. And we got maybe, I think, 80 some locations in 23, I take it back, 23 locations in 8 states.
Right.
That's where it started out that second year. And we've built up now to next week, we'll be partnering with close to 1,000 locations in 15, 16 different countries that are offering a free lesson or class to new students. Everything from music and movement groups that do, you know, in-person classes, or now they're doing some virtual with parents and young children, to, you know, teenagers, young children learning an instrument for the first time, or even adults. My one guitar student, Richard, who I haven't been able to teach in person for a year, didn't start learning to play guitar until he was 80 years young.
80, the big 80.
So,
and he loves it. He always wanted to learn to play, and he asked Vincent.
God bless him. What's his name?
David Charles.
David Charles.
So David Charles, God bless you.
Yes, he's very. You know what? It's funny. He kind of reminds me a little bit. I saw your interview yesterday with John Davidson, and what a delight he was.
He was a lot of fun. Just great, as are you, both of you. I am so impressed with both of you, with the tenacity that you planted a seed, and that seed is continuing to grow. What is the direction of the next book? And I hope, for Joann's sake, Vincent, that you have not placed a date on her for the book to come out. What's the process for the next book? And will it be along the same lines as the 2 previous books, or is it going to go in a new direction?
So I'm going to jump in real quick, because we actually have 3 in the works.
Oh my God.
And so
3 ideas in the works.
So 1 is basically a continuation of book 1 and 2. But the 3rd and 4th, the 4th and 5th, excuse me, are a special Armed Forces edition and a special marching band edition.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So we'd like to put together 2. They'll probably be slightly smaller books, but that focus, like, these are all stories related to marching band, experiences that kids went through, what it meant to them, how it helped them develop their young adult lives, and what it meant to them later. We've already seen some of these stories, and we're just like, we know there's hundreds more out there, and
we barely touched the tip of the iceberg.
And people in the service, many of them have commented how music has been important to them, either playing music themselves to, you know, allay stress, you know, during times. Also, when performers come to perform for them, you know, way back, you know, in the beginning, you know, the Bob Hope folks and all the USO people that come and perform for them when they're overseas. Music is a big part of them helping them stay sane and stay safe, you know, when they're in situations that are less than desirable. So those are 2 editions we thought really merit, you know, a special edition.
Right.
And how are you both utilizing social media in terms of getting your message out?
So we do posts. we do posts about the book. We actually have and what we call an 88 Ways music chit chat, and it's basically a video show that we do once a week from our 88 Ways Music Facebook page. And we bring on people that have stories and quotes from both books. And people get to tell their story, and people get to the other people that are watching can comment,
ask questions,
and you know, it's really it's just another way for us to be able to help tell their stories to more people, because some people aren't aware of the book. Some people just come across the page, the 88 Ways Music, page, and then we have the chit chats. And just like, what was it, last week? No, week before, we had Simon Kirk on.
That's
so
cool.
They get to go more in detail with their story. Also,
Yes.
we're limited word count for the stories, maybe 1,200 words or so. And we hear some of the most funny, intimate, amazing things when they tell their story live, and we're asking about it in person like this.
Yes.
And things that come out, and we're like, wow. And
we're sorry we couldn't fit that in the book.
Are the two of you accepting donations? Is there a way that people can get involved? Obviously, we want people to buy the book, which I will talk about at the end of our program, which we are fast approaching, I'm sad to say. But how can people get involved with the two of you?
So the best place to find this is keepmusicalive.org. From there, we do accept donations to the nonprofit. We're also looking for volunteers, potential board members. And
we also accept musical instruments.
We're taking
great idea.
Currently just locally here in the Philadelphia area, but we have friends in lots of places that if you have an instrument, we can connect you with a place that will be able to take it.
Yes.
Well, again, I cannot thank you both enough, and especially Vincent on your birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you. When you said March 9th, I'm like, oh, we have to do this.
And that was the thing that just popped into my head. So I'm so thrilled that you're here. I want to thank everybody for being here today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I want to let everyone know, if you are around tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock, this is an amazing book this guy has written, John Strangey. He's written a book about his 30 years in New York City and his love affair with New York City, how it evolved, how it changed. I'm not an original New Yorker. I grew up on a tobacco farm in South Carolina, and the dream of coming to New York was so intense, and he tells his story as well. So please join us tomorrow if you can. I want to thank everyone for being here. If you enjoyed the show, and I hope you did, whatever platform you're listening to this on, whether it be a podcast or on YouTube, or just go to my website, richardskipper.com. Please sign my guest book if you haven't done so already, with your thoughts about the show. That helps to book me and boost me in other markets. I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return.
Love
That's
that.
wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Go to your Facebook friends list and go to the 8th name that pops up. And I want you to do 2 things today. I want you, number one, to give them a phone call, not a text message, not an email, not a private inbox message, but a phone call.
Nice.
Let them know what they mean to you. Because as my dear friend David Friedman says, great songwriter, says, we are all in this together, but we're not in the same boat.
Right.
You never know what someone's going through at this time. So please, please reach out. And the other thing that I want you all to do is I want you to order, I'm getting choked up. I want you to order 2 copies of this book. Keep one for yourself because it is amazing, uplifting, inspirational book. And then I want you to send one to your 8th friend that you call today. Get them give them a phone call, send them this, because I want this book to get into as many hands as possible. I want to say to the both of you, I thank you for all the work that you've done, the gifts that you have given to the world and will continue to give, not only through these books, but through all the outreach that you're doing. So thank you for that. And anytime that you need a platform or anything, you both have reached a level where you don't hesitate to reach out, and don't do that with me. Please reach out if you need my help with anything.
Thank you.
Before we end today, I'm going to give you each a chance, and I'm going to start with you, Joann, because it is Vincent's birthday, and I'm going to give him the final word today. But Joann, anything that you want to say to anyone who's watching, it can be to expound upon anything that we talked about today, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any message that you want to put out to everyone. And again, I can't thank you enough for being here today. Thank you, Joann.
Well, thank you so very much. We feel privileged to be on your show, and you're a wonderful host, and we absolutely adore you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My message would be to support your public school system's music programs. Look into them, see if they have a music program. If they don't, write to your superintendents, write to the principals, write to the people that help make the decisions on whether or not there's a music program available in your school district.
Thank you. And Vincent, and again, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard. So my message would be that, if your child's school does not have music programs available, try to find some other way to get them involved in music, whether it's through an outside music school, whether it's online free tutorials that are available now. Reach out to us at Keep Music Alive if you have questions. If you're trying to find something in your area, we'll try to, pair you with someone that can help you out. If you need an instrument, we can try to help out with that. Just try to use music. I hate to use the word use, but utilize the gift of music we've all been given to try to help make your lives and those lives around you, better, happier, and more fulfilling.
Thank you. Everybody, make it a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.